Now, broadcasting from deep behind enemy lines in the occupied territory of the Socialist Republic of California, your host, former California State Assemblyman and Governor candidate, Tim Donnelly.
Well, here it is. It has finally happened. There was a great deal of consternation for many, many months as it became clear that Speaker John Boehner wasn't going to survive a vote of confidence. It was going to be a vote of no confidence. And today's the day. He said he woke up today and he had a very emotional moment yesterday with Pope Francis, and John Boehner, who turns 65 in November, said that he is resigning the speakership of the United States House of Representatives. People don't resign, especially when you're in the majority. It just simply isn't done. But he has decided he wanted to make an exit on his own terms because it was clear that many of those who had been working to replace him had whipped the votes. And one thing that Boehner can do is count votes. And it became clear he was going to have to get Democrats to protect his speakership. And Democrats would, because John Boehner was no conservative and consistently, absolutely undermined the efforts of the people that we sent there. See, that's the part that's so frustrating, because most of you who are out there right now getting ready to leave work, you're not sitting around thinking about whether or not John Boehner is the speaker or someone else is the speaker. You just like to have a Congress that listens to you. You'd like to have representatives that you sent there who actually do what they said they would do. And that's the whole point. When you have a government that is supposed to be ruling at our consent, when you have someone who runs the House, because the House is the people's house, and when you have someone who runs the House as if it were their own little fiefdom, that undermines the confidence of the people. And when the people voted as they did in this past election in 2014, it was a clear signal. We want change. We want to have a group of people. We're sending Republicans to oppose Obama. We want you to stop Obama. We want you to stop Obamacare. We want you to stop the Obamnesty, or the Obama executive amnesty. And once the horrible trade deal, what I call the toilet paper trade deal, reared its ugly head, we want you to stop that. We want you to stop and think, and we want you to actually thoughtfully and vigorously represent our viewpoint. And on every turn, when John Boehner had a chance to defund Obama's amnesty by defunding DHS for a period of time, he passed. Because he was afraid that the lamestream media might make fun of him. They might criticize them for, quote unquote, shutting down the government. You're the most powerful politician in the House of Representatives, and you don't have a PR team that can spin it and let people know what you really did. You're so afraid to do what the people sent you there to do that you don't do anything. That's what we've had for all these years. And look at what they did with Obamacare. There was another chance. How about defunding Obamacare? How about repealing Obamacare? How about an effective fight to put down this behemoth that threatens our entire economy? Nope, took a pass. Sorry, don't want to fight that fight. Thanks to John Boehner. And then you had Planned Parenthood. And Planned Parenthood brought an awful lot of people together, Republicans and Democrats, who are deeply concerned about their tax dollars being used for this purpose. There is very little that is clear-cut, that is absolute, that is such a no-brainer in Washington, D.C. And if there ever was, this is. Clearly is. Unequivocally. And so what did Boehner do? He punted. Because he doesn't want to be accused of shutting down the government. You know what? I think we need to shut down the government once in a while. I think those who work in government need to understand who pays their salary. And need to be appreciative of the struggles that we have to do that. So if there's a temporary shutdown of the government, nobody is dying over it. You might get your check late. You might miss a couple days' pay while it gets haggled out. But in the end, you still have a job. It's not like you work in the private sector where you could run a business, work all week, work all month, pay your employees, and never be able to pay yourself anything because you're so busy paying regulators, you're so busy paying fees and fines and taxes, and every government sycophant who walks through the door with their hand out so that you can fund their agency in the name of a fee, which is really just a tax on small business. But see, that's a totally different world. So why are the Republicans so afraid to shut the government down? And why did it take so long to get rid of John Boehner? 323-746-TALK is our number. We will be talking to Art Haney, former PR person for Arizona Governor Jan Brewer. We'll be talking to him at the bottom of the hour, and we will be covering this topic. We'll be taking your calls. And by the way, obviously, there is a huge move now. There's a scramble to replace John Boehner as Speaker. And my question to you, and maybe some of you just don't even know any potential candidates, but who would you like to see replace John Boehner? If you got an opinion on that, we will take your calls throughout the show, starting when we get back. 323-746-TALK. This is the Radio Free California Network. Defending the fundamental freedom of parents to make informed decisions for their own children is a basic human right that should never be infringed. But it was. California's SB 277 denies children access to education and takes away a parent's right to choose. You don't have to be a parent to help, but only you can make a difference. Let's exercise the people's veto and overturn SB 277. To volunteer or donate, go to SB277referendum.com. That's SB277referendum.com. Do it now. Paid for by SB 277 Referendum Committee, FPPC ID number 1378398. Hey, if you were looking for the Radio Free California Network, you found it. This is your host, Tim Donnelly, former California State Assemblyman and radio governor here in California. And we've been talking about John Boehner, and I was just looking online on the break. Do you remember that time when Nancy Pelosi handed him the gavel and he kissed her? The Boehner kiss. If you haven't seen it, you just need to look that up on. It's the most awkward thing I've ever seen in my life, and he looks like a 13-year-old. Anyway, I'm not going to go into any more detail than that. You just have to look at the picture. It's there's one up on Breitbart.com, and there's rumors that Boehner has already cut a deal with Pelosi in order to avoid the government shutdown, which would mean that his final act would be to betray what most Americans would like to see, which is the defunding of Planned Parenthood as there's a full investigation. I think there needs to be. I don't think that's unreasonable at all. And I think most reasonable people who, even those who might be in favor of abortion, or at least the freedom to choose that, would feel the same way. I mean, this is not about the core mission of Planned Parenthood. This is about the backdoor mission of Planned Parenthood, which was to make a profit off of selling the parts of the babies they aborted. Simple as that. And I think when you look at the massive amount of evidence with all those videos, and you look at the fact that they enjoy a nonprofit status, when you look at the fact while they're making a profit, which is essentially nullifies their nonprofit status, and when you further think about the fact that $500 million, okay, so that's over $500 million of your tax dollars are going to an organization that was engaged in profiting off of the desecration of human remains. Look, I am not going to say that there is not some sort of an appropriate role at all in terms of science for fetal cells, but the way in which Planned Parenthood went about it, the way in which they talked about it, the way in which they viewed it was as if someone had brought in chickens and they cut up the chickens and there were some extra parts and they were selling the extra parts. Maybe not even that much respect. Less. Deeply, deeply, deeply disturbing. If you haven't watched those tapes, you need to watch at least one. And make sure you're not doing it just before you eat dinner. It will deeply disturb you if you have a soul. And if you're listening to the Tim Donnelly Show, you have to have a soul. Hey, we are going to take your calls. 323-746-TALK. Who would you like to see replace Speaker John Boehner? If you've got an opinion, we're going to do a little poll here today from now until 6 o'clock. And we also we're willing to continue to take your calls right up until someone drops out. So whoever is next to drop out of the presidential race, either Republican or Democrat, whoever guesses the correct individual that is next will get a $10 gift certificate to In-N-Out Burger. So you definitely want to put your opinion down on that. It doesn't cost you anything, and you might get a free lunch out of it. And there aren't many free lunches in this world. But then again, you probably know that. So the most obvious candidate for new speaker is going to be none other than California's own Kevin McCarthy. And Kevin is someone that I know personally. He is a very good friend of a friend of mine, Shannon Grove, who's an assemblywoman here in California. And he certainly has the political skills. The only thing that I fear is that when it comes down to the core issues that matter to conservatives, my concern is that he might be too quick to sell out, much in the vein of a John Boehner. And I think he always talks the right game. He always has the right thing to say. I think he is certainly one who knows how to navigate the political world. And you got to have somebody with some of those skills. You can't just put, let me, I don't know. Sean, Sean McNeil is riding co-pilot with us today. And Sean, doesn't it remind you of an opportunity maybe for someone like Newt Gingrich?
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, Newt Gingrich was a backbencher. He was a bomb thrower who fomented a revolution when Bill Clinton became president and came up with the Contract for America and united a whole movement of opposition. So here they were in the minority, and they wound up changing that and changing their status by coming together on, I believe, wasn't it like 10 issues that they, or 10 planks of the Contract with America that they laid out?
Yeah, they had 10 different items there on the contract.
Yeah, that's a pretty good idea, actually, because then you're uniting people around ideas. You're not just being negative. You're not just going, you're not just being against everything. You're stating what you're for, and you also have a mechanism there to communicate to the American people what's in it for them, because that's what they want to know. And right now, if I was going to make a contract for America, number one thing would be to repeal Obamacare. And then right after that, a bullet point under that would be revamp the health insurance system and the way we deliver health care in this country. And that could have been this great conversation. It could have been this great debate. Instead, it was Obama and the Democrats jamming a one-size-fits-all massive government transfer of wealth. That's all it really was. It was just a huge Trojan horse introducing socialism into a whole nother aspect of our economy, a sixth of our economy, where they hadn't quite got their tentacles, and now they're firmly getting them entrenched. Yet I'd love to hear Dr. Ben Carson come out and stop talking about everything else and literally just focus on Obamacare and health savings accounts and how if we brought competition, if we brought cash, if we brought accountability back into the marketplace, then maybe we would actually have a system that worked. And we could line up the incentives, the cash incentives, the market-based incentives. We could align them with our principles. And what I mean by that is very simple. Hey, if you want to smoke, or if you want to eat horrific foods every day and be morbidly obese, no problem. But you're going to pay more for insurance. And in California, they completely blocked that. Even though that's what the free market was doing before, once the government structured the market, they took those incentives out. Now, if you flip it around, and I can say this as someone who has been, I won't say I've been struggling to lose weight because I've actually been succeeding at it. But I'm doing it for different reasons. But if there were a financial incentive for my insurance policy for me to get down to a certain weight, you'd be damn straight that I would get there. You can bet your bottom dollar, because now there would be a tangible benefit to me every month. I mean, even if it was only like my policy went down $50, I would do it. I think a lot of Americans would do it. But in California, at least, that's not even a possibility, because the government has structured the market, and the government's telling you what you're going to buy, and the government's telling you what you're going to pay. And oh yeah, by the way, you get to pay for your neighbor across the street. You get to have an outrageously, insanely high deductible. Well, there's a zero. And they got better coverage, better insurance, and they pay nothing. Why? Because you paid for it. You bought it for them. That's what Obamacare is. Obamacare is forced charity where you get to buy insurance for people that don't live with you. Can't make this stuff up. Hey, we are going to have Art Haney coming up right after this break. Stay tuned. Hey, if you like shooting as much as I do, you've probably been to a lot of ranges. Unless you visited Burro Canyon Shooting Park, you've never seen anything like it. On the way there, you'll find yourself taking pictures as you traverse the majestic Azusa Canyon and wind your way up into the Angeles National Forest. With over 600 acres, including 19 private ranges, there's something for everyone. There's rifle and pistol ranges for beginners, right up to advanced shooters. And there's plenty of spaces to shoot sporting clay. You can make a family day of it, or you can bring a group for team building exercises. Bring a picnic lunch. On the weekends, they provide lunch. And don't worry, they always have ammo in case you forget yours or run out. One thing I can guarantee is that once you visited my friends at Burro Canyon Shooting Park, you'll be hooked and you'll keep coming back. BurroCanyon.com is their website, or call them at 626-910-1344, 626-910-1344. Hey, welcome back to a Free-for-All Friday. We are talking about whatever you want. The big topic, of course, of the day is Speaker John Boehner's resignation. And the poll question for today is very simple. Who would you like to replace him? I know many of you may not be all about insider baseball of politics. So I can give you a couple of examples of some people that you might think about, people who have been leaders, people who pushed for John Boehner's removal. And by the way, I told you we were going to have Art Haney here at the bottom of the hour. It turns out he is going to be calling in at the top of the hour. So we will talk to him then. So we'll talk to you now. We got Kevin McCarthy. He's an obvious favorite. He is a California sunshine boy. He's got the blonde ringlet curls, and he has all the pedigrees. He has risen rapidly through the ranks. The only problem is he's going to have a problem with conservatives, because a lot of conservatives have an issue with Kevin McCarthy, and I don't know how he's going to overcome that. But I would put him in the strongest position, because you got to remember who picks your speaker are not the activists. They're not the conservatives in the party. It's the money people. It's the lobbyists. It's all the power players, because they want someone reasonable. They want someone who will not be filibustering, at least on the Senate side, a different house, but they don't want someone who's going to take a stand and shut down the government. They certainly would not be going for Louis Gohmert. I think Representative Mark Meadows out of North Carolina might have some kind of a shot. He is the latest to organize the vote of no contest, basically the vote of no confidence. Technically, it's called a vote to vacate the chair, in which case, when a caucus votes that way, and I know many of you are probably saying, what are all these terms? You don't usually use them. That's true. But let me walk you through it, because when I was in the assembly, we had a very similar system. Whenever there's a leadership change, and that can happen at almost any time that there is an actual caucus. That means a convening of the members of your party. So Republicans caucus with Republicans, Democrats caucus with Democrats, and they pick their own individual leaders. And there's a whole lot of machinations and tradition and malfeasance and idiocy that accompanies a change of leadership. And I'm sure that this is going to be no different here in Washington, D.C. than it has been here in California. And so let me lay out for you the players. You have the very powerful lobbyists who are sort of like lobbyist superstars. They represent the biggest, most lucrative special interests on the planet. So they have a lot of money to swing around like a big stick. And what they want is very simple. It doesn't matter whether they're personally conservative or liberal. That matters nothing. And that's the part that, if you're playing this game from home, you need to understand that ideology and beliefs and principles are checked at the door when it comes to this kind of stuff. This is money, and this is ruthless power grab stuff. That's what it is. It is a power grab. And so there's no rules. And people will tell you that they're voting for you. Meanwhile, they've just promised their vote to somebody else, and they're doing that intentionally to make you think like you have the votes, so that when you make your bid, and it's a tricky game, because you might have only talked. Let's say that you talked to 12 people, and 10 of them said they're voting for you, and somebody else talked to 5 people, and pretty soon you've got other lieutenants who are running around getting you numbers, and they're doing it because they want to have some sort of a significant role in your administration, and you think you got it. And you show up, and you believe everybody who said they were going to vote for you. You believe all the people who brought you votes, even people who never seem to like you, and all of a sudden they're bringing you votes. And you're thinking, man, I'm such a genius. This is working out so well. You become very impressed with your skills and your charm, and you start thinking that you have it in the bag. And at that moment, you just lost it, because there are always nefarious forces afoot, and all they need to do is take away a handful of your votes. And then when they do that and you stumble, then another candidate is ushered in who has the votes, and you're knocked out. And it always happens behind the scenes. And it's always one of the people who you thought was your friend who stabs you in the back at the last minute in front of everyone. I personally did not run for speaker or well, it wouldn't have been speaker because the Republicans are in the minority. I never ran for leader, let me say it that way. Nor would I. Because that was never what I went there for. I went there to fight for the people. I went there to raise my voice. I went there to effectively oppose the massive unchecked growth of government that threatens your daily lives. I went there to be your voice. And when you take on one of those roles, all of a sudden you have to be cautious about every single thing you say so as not to offend anyone. And if you take it far enough, you become a John Boehner. I mean, every time you see the guy on TV, he's crying. It's like he feels everybody's pain. I wonder if he went out and smoked some pot with Bill Clinton, and maybe, he got the "I feel your pain" vibe. Maybe that he imbibed that vibe, and he stopped fighting, or he never was fighting. All he ever did is fight the conservatives. When the conservatives under Louis Gohmert at the end of last year tried to take him out, he penalized him. He kicked Mark Meadows off a committee. He went after a bunch of these guys, and that's what they do. And in many cases, it's not just their decision. You see, this is where politics is really ugly, because the decision comes from outside the building. When someone texts them and says, "Hey, by the way, you really need to get rid of this guy. He's a problem and I don't like him." And that person who's sending you that text is responsible for bringing millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars into your state or into politics via a PAC or what have you, and that person can easily unseat you, and you know that. That's how a lot of those decisions get made. Simple as that. So they're not just going to let a fair vote happen. They're not just going to go for whoever's the most conservative, who's a good speaker, who, in terms of the way that they give a speech. Being the Speaker of the House is about a whole lot more. It's about managing and herding cats. It is about effectively moving legislation through and negotiating and threatening and deploying a tremendous amount of power, because you essentially are the most powerful vote in half of Congress. You are one of the two most powerful people in Congress, one of the three most powerful people in the country. Billions and billions and billions and hundreds of billions of dollars can be spent in large part because of your negotiations and because of your budget and because of exactly how you marshal your agenda and the agenda of your supporters through the House. So this is a momentous decision. It should not be entered into lightly, but I'm certain that they will do something quickly, because you can't have a speakerless House. Just doesn't look good. 323-746-TALK if you want to talk about who you'd like to see for the next speaker. We'll take your calls when we get back. Whether you're an experienced shooter or just buying your first gun, Turner's Outdoorsman has everything you need, along with a knowledgeable and friendly staff to help you find that perfect gear for your next adventure. Turner's now has 18 locations across Southern California, including a Victorville location right on Bear Valley Road. Be sure to check out the new Archery Pro shops in the Victorville, Chino Hills, and Pasadena locations. If you're not sure what you're looking for, you can browse and shop their selection at Turners.com. Be sure to check out their weekly specials and sign up to get them delivered directly to your inbox. Turners is where I turn for all my firearms and ammo needs. Remember to tell them Tim Donnelly sent you, and you'll get an additional discount. Hey, you are listening to the Radio Free California Network. I am your host, Tim Donnelly, former California State Assemblyman and radio governor here in the state of California. And we've been talking about what it takes to be a speaker, what it entails, what is going to happen next, which, of course, I would love to get your take. Do you have a favorite? Is there someone you would like or not like to see speaker? I'm sure you're going to see the likes of Louis Gohmert out of Texas, possibly Trey Gowdy. He would be an interesting pick. He's the one who is running the committee that is looking into the Hillary Clinton email scandal and is certainly a favorite with conservatives, but I think he also has some crossover appeal. He's got some serious credentials. And then there's Mark Meadows out of North Carolina. Now, Mark Meadows may not be a household name, except to maybe John from North Carolina, but we do have some listeners in North Carolina to the Radio Free California Network, and I'm sure he would definitely be a favorite of a lot of people because he was the one who tried to unseat the king. And although his coup didn't take place in public, it certainly appears to have succeeded because he whipped the votes. And it's all about votes. The game is a power game, and it's about power. It's about money. It is about position and privilege, and whoever gets that role will be part of history. They will be, especially here in the final 2 years of the Obama administration. And look, John Boehner was making horrible deals in order to push through Obama's agenda, which doesn't make any sense. I mean, last time I checked, the guy was a Republican. But it's no surprise that he's out. Only 2% of GOP voters were very satisfied with Boehner-McConnell. Hopefully McConnell's next. That's Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader. 2%. Maybe the same 2% that are going to vote for Jeb Bush or Hillary Clinton. I don't know. But 62% of Republicans in a recent poll said they feel betrayed by their party. I mean, betrayed is a pretty strong word. That is not something that you use every day. And I guess people in the GOP have realized they better do something. Because here they are in the majority. They act like they're in the minority with their leadership under John Boehner and Mitch McConnell. They instead of fighting, instead of standing up for what we believe in, they've been handing over victory after victory after victory to Barack Obama. And the entire 2014 election was about undoing Obama's agenda. It was about putting a halt to Obama's agenda. You could have fooled me. Under John Boehner, they never got the message. They didn't care. It was business as usual. And here's the remarkable thing. They didn't care to pick a single one of the fights. And when you pick a fight, when you're in the majority, you need to pick a fight and you need to win the fight. And these guys are supposed to be smart. They're supposed to be the creme de la creme. You'd think that they would have, I would have thought they would have gone after the amnesty. It was the easiest one. They could have defunded Department of Homeland Security. There's actually a whole lot of people on the left that would have been thrilled to have our so-called borders insecure. But the bottom line is that we don't do very much enforcement at all. We just let people come in and we process them and we give them a court date. They skip their court date and they're free and clear on the streets. That's what we do. We don't deport people. There's a handful of people that get deported every year who are, I guess, dangerous criminals or people they've rounded up off a special list. But it would not have shut down the Department of Homeland Security. It would have merely made them cut their budget, and it would have made the point that the GOP was standing up for the rest of us. For those of us who are paying for all this, for those of us who are sick and tired of watching Republicans play this little kabuki dance where they put on a show and they pretend they're doing something, and in the end, all they do is screw over the people who brought them to the dance. So it's going to be a very interesting week or weekend to see when and whom the new speaker will be. 323-746-TALK if you wish to venture a guess. And we're also taking guesses on who's going to be next out of the race. Who do you think it is? We got a whole lot of people in dead last, and so far we have Lindsey Graham has 2 votes, and Rick Santorum has 1, and I don't know. I think that one. I guess I wish it was going to be Hillary, but that is not likely. Anyway, we will be back right after this break with former PR person for Arizona Governor Jan Brewer. Hey, welcome back to the Radio Free California Network. I am your host, Tim Donnelly, former California State Assemblyman and radio governor here in California. And I want to bring on a good friend of mine who acted as a PR director for Arizona Governor Jan Brewer, helped her get elected. And Art Haney joins the show every once in a while to comment. And today is a great day, Art. Welcome to the show. I mean, is there hope for the Republicans? They kicked John Boehner to the curb?
Now we don't have to watch him cry anymore, which is kind of nice.
Oh, my word. Yeah, I think we got to change the name of C-SPAN to the crying game every time he's on.
Well, I heard an interview with him this morning on a sports talk show that he cried on. It's like, Jesus. I mean, everybody breaks down once in a while, but every interview, every 5 minutes, I'm surprised like the orange spray paint on his face doesn't ever run.
Well, now that obviously something was afoot that was going to remove him. People like that don't just walk away from powerful positions.
Nope, but that's what everybody does. Everybody gives them the opportunity to resign with dignity and say, the classic, I'm going to spend more time with my family, or the other move, which, as you know from campaign days, was you find a job for someone somewhere else so that it doesn't look like they're fired, so it doesn't stir up a lot of bad press. But no, he's not had the best record in deal making while he's been on the Hill, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy that had a unique opportunity. He could have reinvented his image. He could have went after Obama's amnesty. He could have defunded it. He could have gone after Obamacare. And I think the public would have forgiven him for failing if he'd actually appeared to try in an effective way rather than just make a half-hearted attempt and play politics with it.
Well, and I think that's a real symptom of sort of the American electorate now. I mean, that's why Trump is so far ahead in the polls. Well, I take that back. He's ahead in some polls. There's actually a new poll that's been released that's really interesting, and I think very telling amongst people who actually voted in the last 2 elections. And according to that, he's tied with Fiorina at only 18%, and Rubio's right on their tail. So I think that's, the people who are actually active and not just, answering the phone and saying, I vote for whoever, when they never actually leave or go to vote. But a columnist who I first worked with when I first got into the public affairs world, in a column I think it was yesterday or the day before, called Trump a vessel of America's disgust with current politics and how nothing is getting done. And, and Boehner's just another in the long line of people who talk a lot and don't actually do anything.
Yeah. But, I mean, what are we going to get next? I think that's the real question, because are we literally going to be moving in a direction toward a real conservative, or are we going to get another one of these conservatives in name only who talks a big game, but the minute that there's a deal on the table, sells out the American people, sells out the conservatives, sells out the principles on which he claims to represent.
Well, and that's, unfortunately the game. Once they get on the Hill, I heard once that that sort of the rule amongst everybody on the Hill is rule number one when you get on the Hill is to get reelected and stay on the Hill, and that becomes the first priority, not actually solving anything, which is unfortunate because it's the whole reason they're there. However, we can't really make terms that much shorter because then nothing gets done. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know. Trump may actually be one of the few people that would really care less about getting any enemies and do something. However, he may, resort so much to his sort of high school antics of just calling people names that he may not have any friends and may not get anything done. So I guess that sort of all remains to be seen.
Yeah, I mean, I read an article earlier today that said that Donald Trump, Ben Carson, and Carly Fiorina are all going to be knocked out of the race, and we're going to get a paid professional politician. And that Americans never pick the outsider. We always pick the politician. What do you think of that?
Boy, I would sure like to believe otherwise. I think I could see Trump falling off just because it's sort of a passing fad, and like I said, everybody's really frustrated. But the more he gets out in public and sort of seems to speak with not a lot of substance, and just likes to sort of cut down all of his opponents. Even stuff like the wall. Yeah, I would love to see a wall, and I'd love to see Mexico pay for it. But do you think they're gonna? No.
Well, no, there's a way to do that, though. I mean, first of all, when you're talking about our border, what we need is an effective physical barrier. People say a wall. They say it that way because they want to make it sound like a dumb idea. An effective physical barrier is at least 20 feet high, and it has gaps in it. And it has intentional gaps where the fence ends or the physical barrier ends, and it's usually up against a hillside. That way you're not spending a huge, inordinate amount of money going up and trying to put fencing or physical barrier way, way up, which is really expensive to do and really difficult to do. But what happens is then you drive the traffic to one choke point. And all the traffickers have to go through that choke point. And guess what? You can actually position a Border Patrol agent to watch the choke point.
Sure. I mean, it's, the White House loves to say a wall would be ineffective. Well, if a wall is ineffective, why do they have a wall around the White House?
Yeah, exactly. They have one up. They have one up today to block the Chinese protesters from being seen by the president. They wouldn't want to offend him. We're living in interesting times, but going back to the speakership just for a minute, do you think there's anybody in the GOP elite that seems to understand that they have a serious image problem with their base? I mean, did you hear those poll numbers? 62% of Republicans feel that they've been betrayed by the Republican Party. A mere 2% actually approve of John Boehner and Mitch McConnell as leaders. 2% of Republican voters polled think they're doing a great job.
Yeah, but it's always, you get this in every election every year. Everybody's dissatisfied with everyone in Congress and the Senate. But when it comes to voting, they reelect them all because they think it's everybody else's guy, not their guy. And the leadership does the same thing. I mean, they put in who they can have move toward what they want and what their agenda is. And that's not necessarily always what the voters' agenda is. And that's sad, but, that's how it works. Everybody gets up there to play ball. So I don't think it's going to be any different than, anybody else in a long line.
Obviously, in the catbird seat, you've got California's Kevin McCarthy. He's uniquely positioned, had a quick rise up to majority whip under Speaker Boehner, and so he's gonna be in with all the big money guys. He's gonna be in with the lobbyists and the power players. And you've got a couple others. Daniel Webster has put his name in the game. I'm sure Mark Meadows of North Carolina will, and more than likely a number of others. But this could go either way. You just never know.
Yeah. I don't expect that much to be different. And, in the grand scheme of things, even when we switch presidents, not tons change. There are certainly policy issues that are different. Putting people in the Supreme Court has a huge significance. And every once in a while, something comes along like Obamacare, which is horrific and is going to bankrupt us. But by and large, not that much changes. I mean, when the economy changed, when Clinton was in office, that was a wheel that was turning long before he got there. And when Bush left office, the wheels were still turning when Obama inherited his issues. Whoever's next, he's going to inherit Obama's. Nothing changes overnight. So, the upside is that's what the checks and balances system is for, supposedly. Although now that the Supreme Court is weighed fairly heavily one way, that's going to be a huge factor. But, by and large, people are going to chicken out at the last second. They're still going to vote for who they're comfortable with. They're not going to break the eggs to make an omelet. And I think that's just sort of human nature. I mean, I think we've talked about it before. People would rather watch, who the finalist is on American Idol than a presidential debate.
Well, we are talking with former PR director for Arizona Governor Jan Brewer, Art Haney, and we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with your calls, 323-746. Don't touch that dial. Whether you're an experienced shooter or just buying your first gun, Turner's Outdoorsman has everything you need, along with a knowledgeable and friendly staff to help you find that perfect gear for your next adventure. Turner's now has 18 locations across Southern California, including a Victorville location right on Bear Valley Road. Be sure to check out the new Archery Pro shops in the Victorville, Chino Hills, and Pasadena locations. If you're not sure what you're looking for, you can browse and shop their selection at Turners.com. Be sure to check out their weekly specials and sign up to get them delivered directly to your inbox. Turners is where I turn for all my firearms and ammo needs. Remember to tell them Tim Donnelly sent you, and you'll get an additional discount. Hey, if you are just tuning in to the Radio Free California Network, where you been? We are talking with Art Haney, political consultant to, among others, the Jan Brewer campaign. He's also a PR wizard, and we're talking about the GOP, and they're really in need of a serious makeover, to say the very least. Art, what do you think of that? Well, give me a second here while we're getting Art back. But the GOP, when 62% of your people think you betrayed them, you got a problem. You've got an image problem. And when people hate your leadership, you've got an even bigger problem. You can't make this stuff up.
Like I said before, it's too bad because they know they have an image problem, but their solution is to be all inclusive, which basically makes them just like the Democrats, and that's been their biggest problem. I don't think they get what their problem actually is, and they like the people who vote in their same person because they think it's everybody else's guy, think it's everybody else's problem, but the one that they're actually solving, and the people in charge aren't listening. So I don't see that really changing anytime soon.
And it's crazy because this is a year when Republicans should be dominating. This should be the year of the Republican, and yet they can't get out of their own way.
Yeah, how bad have they been at branding themselves? All they do is continue to do the same thing that makes everybody angry in the first place. I don't get it, but we get to sit back and marvel at it, I guess, and talk about it on the radio.
Well, everybody's talking about it, and there's a whole lot of people this year that they've got a lot of reason to want to move to another party. In California, some 46% of Californians, which this occurred, there was a poll done just before the last election, disapprove of Obamacare. Well, 46% of anything in California includes a whole lot of Democrats and independent voters. And the GOP could be courting them. The GOP could be making a big deal out of making a stand against Obamacare. But when Ted Cruz went up and did the filibuster, they just let him hang. Or they hung him out to dry.
Yeah, and it's, lobbyists are obviously playing a huge part in that, because when it first started to come up the hill and it looked like that was actually going to pass, there was obviously a furor against it. But, what I'm sure a lot of your listeners noticed was that when Obamacare was passed, whose stocks went up in the stock market? All the medical stocks, the hospitals, pharmaceuticals, and on and on and on. And I'm not embarrassed to say that I bought a ton of medical stock that day myself. So, that's who's lobbying to keep it. And that's who's paying for those people to be reelected. Like they said in All the President's Men, follow the money.
Yeah, and clearly, money and the power players are going to play a big role in this speakership change. And who's your money on?
I'd like to see Tom Price get it. He may be one of the few guys that tries to rule with an iron fist and argues for what seems to be right, or at least what he believes in. Whether anybody else agrees with it or not. At least that's something that's better than everybody just rolling over and making deals when they're horrible. So that's what I'd like to see. But, if I was a betting man, I would say probably somebody like McCarthy, somebody who has a lot of backing of the establishment and a lot of the money players.
Yeah, he certainly seems to be in the first position. But this is one of those years when anything could happen. Certainly, you've got to remember that Boehner didn't have enough votes to survive, or he wouldn't have walked. You agree with that?
Yeah. No, he was going to get tossed. He saw the writing on the wall, and I think they let him sort of hang out for the day while the Pope was there, and then was basically told his walking papers are as soon as he can pack his stuff and put it in a box.
Yeah, so they're not going to be in a big hurry to put in his number two guy.
Yeah, no. So, but yeah, I'd like to see Reardon get it. He was one of the guys that did fight against Obama and Obamacare. So, he's probably one of the few really conservative people up there.
Now, what state is he from?
Ohio.
Okay, it's Tom Price, you said?
No, actually, I meant Jim Reardon.
Oh, okay. What about Trey Gowdy?
Tom Price is another one that's on there. What's that?
Trey Gowdy would seem to be a natural name that would be at the top of the short list.
Who knows? It's kind of like the presidential election. Anything could go. Like I say, there's still a lot of football to be played in the game. So, I remember when I was working early on John McCain's campaign in 2008, there was this name that kind of popped up a couple of times, a guy by the name of Barack Obama, who was going to run for president, and everybody's like, nah, that guy doesn't have a snowball's chance. He doesn't have the infrastructure. And, look what we got, years later. So, it's only been, 8 hours since he resigned. So who knows what's
Yeah.
going to happen.
Art Haney, thanks for coming on with us. Political consultant to the stars. Stars like Arizona Governor Jan Brewer and many others. Hey, thanks for your analysis and have a great weekend. We will be right back, and we'll take your calls. 323-746-TALK. Hey, if you like shooting as much as I do, you've probably been to a lot of ranges. Unless you visited Burro Canyon Shooting Park, you've never seen anything like it. On the way there, you'll find yourself taking pictures as you traverse the majestic Azusa Canyon and wind your way up into the Angeles National Forest. With over 600 acres, including 19 private ranges, there's something for everyone. There's rifle and pistol ranges for beginners, right up to advanced shooters. And there's plenty of spaces to shoot sporting clay. You can make a family day of it, or you can bring a group for team building exercises. Bring a picnic lunch. On the weekends, they provide lunch. And don't worry, they always have ammo in case you forget yours or run out. One thing I can guarantee is that once you visited my friends at Burro Canyon Shooting Park, you'll be hooked and you'll keep coming back. BurroCanyon.com is their website, or call them at 626-910-1344, 626-910-1344. Hey, you have found your way to the Radio Free California Network, and I am your host, Tim Donnelly, former California State Assemblyman and Radio Governor of California, and we're celebrating. It is a free-for-all Friday. John the Crier, John Boehner, has left the building. He is no longer the Speaker of the House. This is the guy who is the architect of the destruction of the conservative movement, took the Republican Party, who came into the majority in spite of him, and made a left turn. Every time Barack Obama brought something up, John Boehner was there to help him. John Boehner was flying on airplanes, on Air Force One, and hanging out and hugging and kissing Nancy Pelosi instead of doing the bidding of the people. He was one of the least popular speakers of all time, according to one report. And we're trying to figure out who's going to replace him and whether or not they're going to be any different. I mean, if we just get another Boehner wannabe, what's the point of the Republican Party going to be? So I'm curious what you think. 323-746-TALK. Are you happy that John Boehner is out? And who'd you like to see replace him? We were talking to Art Haney, political consultant. He likes Jim Reardon out of Ohio. That's a name I'm not terribly familiar with. I'd like to see someone like Trey Gowdy or Mark Meadows. Let's get a real conservative in there. It's got to be somebody who's got some skills, some political skills. You can't just be a complete bomb thrower. I mean, people describe Newt Gingrich that way, but he was anything but. He was a very, very effective leader and ushered in an era, ushered the Republicans into power when they had lost the majority. They had been in the wilderness. And when President Bill Clinton said he was going to raise your taxes, he used that moment. He seized that moment. We need a leader that will actually step up and seize the moment, seize an issue and capture the imagination of the country. Because right now we got people that just don't seem to have any sense of what's really bothering people, of what's truly the problem. And it's a unique opportunity. So we shall certainly see who they decide. I mean, I don't know. It seems to me that they're not going to let this hang out there a long time, because you've got to have some sort of leader. We're going into a presidential year. And of course, unfortunately, Boehner may have made some deals going out the door that that are going to be problematic for whomever the new speaker is. So they're going to need to bring somebody in fairly quickly. I still don't understand why he didn't want to defund Planned Parenthood. I need somebody to explain that to me. How does that benefit the GOP to not do the right thing? You have these videos that have captured the imagination of the public. Well, not the imagination. They've sickened and broken the hearts of the public. Let me say it that way. They've horrified and disgusted people. People are angry. They want somebody to take action. The most logical action is simply, this is not about outlawing or banning abortion. It's simply about defunding an organization that was clearly not a nonprofit because they were making a profit. They were profiting off of evil. They were profiting off of the sale and the dismemberment and the chopping up of human remains, babies. And how do you not fight that fight? How is not fighting that fight to the benefit of the Republican Party? I'm just curious if there's anyone who can answer me that question, because I don't see it. I don't understand that one. And look, if you're going to be afraid of being accused of being the people who shut down the government, don't be a Republican. It doesn't matter whether you actually shut down the government. The media is still going to accuse you of that. And they're going to come after you. They're going to call you names. They're going to trot out people who they claim are being hurt by you trying to get a handle and get some grasp on some part of the budget. Going to go to the phones here for a minute and see what you think. Hey, welcome to the show.
Yes, I have a question to ask you.
Who is this?
This is Jerry. Anyway, California legislature, I understand, passed some kind of a bill that coincides with Agenda 21 of the United Nations. Would that be true? If it is, I'd like to get a copy of that bill.
Oh, yeah. They've passed dozens of bills like that. There was a bill, SB 375, which was passed under the Schwarzenegger administration. He signed it. And then you also had AB 32. And there's a new bill, and I believe they're calling it SB 32. So instead of AB 32, it's SB 32. And they want to finish the job and implement the rest of Agenda 21 throughout California. And we've talked about that rather extensively on here, because here's the thing. It isn't government's role to tell people where to live, to tell them what to drive, to tell them what kind of work they can do, because they've decided to ban certain types of production or penalize them so heavily by confiscating their capital in the name of the cap and trade scheme that you basically have the government dictating your life, almost every aspect of it.
Well, thank you for giving that answer. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for the call. So, here's the thing. Who the next speaker is in Washington, D.C. really does impact your life, because if you have a true patriot in there, then you're going to have somebody who's going to expose these kinds of agendas. You're going to have somebody who effectively organizes in the streets and among the people. And don't look now, but you might actually have effective opposition to the Marxist progressive policies of Barack Obama. You might actually have effective opposition to the schemes of Nancy Pelosi. Remember, you got to pass it before you know what's in it. Thank you for Obamacare. The ball is in the hands of the Republicans. Whether they choose to do anything with it or not remains to be seen. We are going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with more of your calls. 323-746. You got it. Talk. Defending the fundamental freedom of parents to make informed decisions for their own children is a basic human right that should never be infringed. But it was. California's SB 277 denies children access to education and takes away a parent's right to choose. You don't have to be a parent to help, but only you can make a difference. Let's exercise the people's veto and overturn SB 277. To volunteer or donate, go to SB277referendum.com. That's SB277referendum.com. Do it now. Paid for by SB 277 Referendum Committee, FPPC ID number 1378398. Meanwhile, back here in California, there's a lake up near Susanville. Popular fishing hole, Folsom. It says Folsom Lake. That can't be right. No, it's not. It's a Northern California reservoir that ran dry overnight, killing thousands of fish and leaving residents looking for answers. Thousands of fish lay dead in what used to be Mountain Meadows Reservoir, also known as Walker Lake. And one resident, Eddie Bauer, come on, his name can't be Eddie Bauer. He lives up in the mountains. He's named Eddie Bauer. Okay. He said everywhere you see that's wet, there was water. But he says, we were fishing there last Saturday, and then the lake drained overnight like a bathtub. Bauer has lived near this lake his entire life. First time he's ever seen it run dry. And it turns out PG&E, Pacific Gas and Electric, own the rights to the water, and they use it for hydroelectric power. But one day you had water, the next day it's all gone, and all the fish are dead. No matter who's to blame, residents here worry this could happen in other areas of the state. The reservoirs are all continuing to be far below normal, according to Doug Carlson with the Department of Water Resources. That's a little bit scary, especially in this day and age when water is so crucial to a state like ours. We're going to go back to the phones. Hey, welcome to the Tim Donnelly Show.
Hello.
You're live on air.
Yeah, this is George from Riverside. Can you hear me?
Hi, George. Yeah, how are you?
Oh, okay. I'm fine. You're coming in loud and clear down in Riverside here. I'm going to put out a name here. Dan Webster from Florida. He was, I think he was a leader of the Florida House back when. He hasn't been in the House Representatives very long, but he was on the radio this morning, and he sounded like he's a conservative guy, and he. And also, I'll put out Trey Gowdy. They say he does not want the job, but who knows?
Well, that's what you're supposed to say is you don't want the job, because if you want the job, you're probably a little too power hungry. But So what was Daniel Webster's pitch? What did he say in terms of what he thought he could accomplish?
Well, he was not on very long, but he was recommended by I can't think of the senator the House Representative, a real right-wing, great guy, but he said he had too many problems against him because he's been real outspoken as a conservative. But he's from Texas, and I can't think of his name right now.
You thinking of Louis Gohmert?
Yeah, Louis Gohmert. He said he didn't think that he would even get a chance because he can... Louis Gohmert has been. He was out there. He was one of the first ones to try to take out John Boehner, and of course he was left there, abandoned at the moment of doing the deed by some of the people who said they would help him. So he's probably not going to run. I would agree with you there. But Daniel Webster might be an interesting change. An interesting name, anyway. An interesting name, Daniel Webster. In our history, long history, way back when. And also a name came out as Meadows, Meadows. another.
That's Mark Meadows out of North Carolina, who is.
He was the first one, I think, to raise a question about Beamer back a few months ago, and then he lost his job, but he got back in the good graces and went, and there was too much hubbub about him, and they took him back to his original job.
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah, that's right. Yeah, John Boehner removed him from a committee and then had to reinstate him because there was so much uproar from the public. And so he would definitely, I think, I kind of like his style. I don't know a tremendous amount about him, but he's got courage, and we need some people with some courage in there.
Well, that's what Dan Webster, he wasn't on very long, maybe 5 minutes at the most, and I can't remember. He was on one of the morning shows. And, he's gung-ho, and he wants the job, and he's conservative. He's not quite as conservative as the gentleman from Texas. What's his name? You mentioned it a little while back.
Oh, Louis Gohmert.
Anyway,
yeah.
Louis Gohmert, yeah. And he's not as controversial, I don't think. But he was head of the Florida House, if I remember right. And he's conservative, and he wants the job, and he sounds like a go-getter. And I'd recommend him. So that's about what I wanted to say.
All right. Well, thank you for your call, and thanks for listening.
You're welcome. You got a good show there. The first time I've heard it, because I usually watch or listen to radio stations down here, but you're coming in loud and clear down here, so I appreciate that. 11:50 a.m. Yeah.
Well, good.
Okay,
thank you. Well, we'll keep those names in mind. We've got Daniel Webster. We've got, of course, Mark Meadows. I figured Mark Meadows would be up there in consideration because he was the guy. He's sort of the architect. See, Louis Gohmert tried the first time, and Mark Meadows was involved, and Mark Meadows got penalized, and then he created something of a name for himself, and that's what we need. We need people who are willing to stand up and be counted. And then when the going gets rough, they hang in there, they do something in an effective manner, and then what happens is you can rally people behind them and actually have a real leader, somebody that wants to go do something, somebody that wants to go fight against this massive encroachment on our liberties and on our freedom and on our future. I mean, we've got a government that has become the greatest threat to our future. And any which way you look at it, whether it's your economic future, whether it's your civil liberties, whether it's the future of your business. I mean, every time you turn around, the government is coming, and it would be nice to have somebody in there who would be a backstop, who would look to repeal some of these stupid laws, some of these unconstitutional laws, some of these massive, well, you know what I mean. Hey, 323-746-TALK. We will be right back after these short messages. Hey, you are listening to the Radio Free California Network. I am your host, Tim Donnelly, former California State Assemblyman and Radio Governor of California. I'm going to go to the phones. John from North Carolina. John,
good evening,
welcome to
sir.
the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm doing fantastic.
Great. Yeah, I heard you kind of refer to me here about an hour 15 minutes ago. So
yeah, we called you out. You guys got a man in the mix there, maybe. You think Mark Meadows could take it?
Yeah, well, yes, I do. I like him because, like the previous caller said, he was instrumental in doing the right thing, and what you said about McCarthy, as far as him leaning towards the donor class and the lobbyists, I don't know him real well, but yeah, somebody from North Kakalaki, why not?
North Kakalaki. Say that 3 times
That's
fast.
Right. Yeah. But, man, I'm having some newfound faith in the California people. I listen to your local callers out there, and I really like what they're saying, and they are passionate, and they have a reason to be concerned. And, boy, wouldn't it be great to turn around California to a red state?
Yeah. Hey, John, hang on the line because I want to bring a good friend of mine on, and maybe you can have a conversation with her as well. I've got Anne-Marie Morell of Politichicks.com. Anne-Marie, you're on with me and with John from North Carolina.
Well, hello, John from North Carolina. Good to meet you. Hi, Kevin. I'm in Oklahoma right now.
Oklahoma? What are you doing there?
I am where the wind comes sweeping down the plain. I'm going to be speaking here tomorrow. So I'm with some of the most amazing activists in the entire United States. These are wonderful people. Julia C. is one of my favorite writers for Politichicks, and she is organizing this. And so I'm here.
Oh, that's fantastic. So you've got writers all over the country from all kinds of backgrounds. And what is Julia's background? What is her specialty?
Julia she was instrumental with a handful of people in getting rid of Common Core in Oklahoma, and one of your favorite subjects, they have put vaccines back into the hands of parents. So they did that here in Oklahoma. So you need to talk to Julia for sure, Tim.
Wow. Well, that's great.
Yeah.
So what is your take on Boehner's ousting? Boehner's out. Who's in? I mean, you got any ideas? Any thoughts?
You know, I was doing so many happy dances this morning when I first saw that on my Twitter feed. I was so excited. I'm glad he's doing the right thing. I'm questioning why he's doing it so abruptly. It's very, very, very curious why.
Yeah, it seemed like just yesterday he was crying with the Pope.
Right.
He's usually crying into a beer somewhere over something, and now all of a sudden he's going home.
Yeah. Well, my greatest wish in life would be that my dear, dear friend Louis Gohmert would be able to be the Speaker of the House. I don't think that's going to happen, but I heard you talking earlier. If it's McCarthy, we're not going to be in any really better shape than we were with Boehner.
Now, do you think Louis Gohmert would run?
Oh gosh, yeah. Oh, definitely. I knew he wanted to before. Absolutely, and he would be a wonderful Speaker of the House. He would be probably the best we've ever had, ever.
Well, there are a number that have Daniel Webster's already put his name in. Louis has talked to the press. I don't know if he's formally put his name in. You have others from around the country that are being mentioned. Trey Gowdy is one who he said, he doesn't really think he'd like to do it, but you know what that is. That's political speak for, let me pretend to be humble.
Yeah, well, he has a lot of work to do. He's such a great, brilliant lawyer. I was a fan of his on Forensic File. He was on Forensic File all the time. So I was a fan of his. I think that he will still be able to find justice for Benghazi and everything else that we need help for in the justice system or injustice system. But for me, my wish of all time is Louis Gohmert. Because I do know how much I've spoken to him personally one-on-one. I know how badly he would love to be Speaker of the House. I know that he kind of got burned the last go-round when they were trying to change things out, and but he's my choice.
Well, yeah, he was the guy left there with a knife in his hand, ready to do the dirty deed that needed to be done to remove the cancer of John Boehner's speakership from the GOP. And he got sold out. And I mean, did you see the polls? I mean, 62% of Republicans say they feel betrayed by the Republican Party. Only 2% of Republican voters polled said that they liked Boehner and McConnell as the leaders.
Well, of course, as far as I'm concerned, people like that are today's Democrats. John Boehner, Peter King, who is a monster, Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham, the list goes on and on. They, to me, are today's Democrats. And today's Democrat Party are communist-leaning socialists. So we've got problems in both parties, and it's time for us, like you just said, we need to use a scalpel and get rid of the cancer, because I still think we can save our party, but it's going to take vigilance and it's going to take perseverance, and we can't give up on the party.
Absolutely. Hey, you've already given us an answer to one of our poll questions today, which is you would like to see Louis Gohmert as Speaker, so we're going to put you down for that. But who do you think is going to be the next to drop out of the presidential race on either side?
I don't know why it hasn't already been Lindsey Graham. He has the biggest ego. He has the most self-confident man, I guess, in the history of men, that he really thinks that he has a chance to be president. I don't know why he's running. I don't know why he wasn't the one to drop out instead of Scott Walker. But I would hope it's him. I don't think it's going to be.
So Lindsey, don't vote for me, Graham.
Right. Why in the world? I don't want his sister to be First Lady of America. It's the most bizarre thing ever. So yeah, I would hope it would be him, but it's probably not going to be. I would think that someone like Rick Santorum might drop out. I'm not sure. But
well, we put you down for Lindsey Graham. So if it comes true, you're going to get a free a gift certificate to In-N-Out Burger worth $10. So you can buy Mark a cheeseburger. Hey, we'll let you go because I know you just landed in Oklahoma. I appreciate you calling in. Yeah. And tell Julia C. that we would love to have her on sometime and talk about how she eradicated Common Core in Oklahoma. And
absolutely.
And good luck.
Too, yeah.
Good luck in your speaking engagement tomorrow.
All right, thanks, Ken.
Thank you. We are going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with more of your calls. So stay tuned and stick right here. Don't touch that dial. Whether you're an experienced shooter or just buying your first gun, Turner's Outdoorsman has everything you need, along with a knowledgeable and friendly staff to help you find that perfect gear for your next adventure. Turner's now has 18 locations across Southern California, including a Victorville location right on Bear Valley Road. Be sure to check out the new Archery Pro shops in the Victorville, Chino Hills, and Pasadena locations. If you're not sure what you're looking for, you can browse and shop their selection at Turners.com. Be sure to check out their weekly specials and sign up to get them delivered directly to your inbox. Turners is where I turn for all my firearms and ammo needs. Remember to tell them Tim Donnelly sent you, and you'll get an additional discount. Hey, welcome back to the Radio Free California Network. I am your host, Tim Donnelly, former California State Assemblyman and radio governor of California. And we just had Anne-Marie Morell of Politichicks.com check in. And interesting, because we're getting a bunch of names, and Louis Gohmert is obviously her favorite, and we'll see how that pans out. We were talking to John from North Carolina. John, welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much. I guess I was supposed to keep on hanging on, but...
I wanted you to hang on. I thought you guys might engage in a little conversation, but Anne-Marie was in a hurry. She was just landed, is on her way to a speaking engagement, had just arrived at the restaurant. So, but I really wanted to get her take because she's been so passionately outspoken about trying to recapture the soul of the Republican Party, and I think that's what this opportunity represents, don't you?
Oh yeah, for sure, big time, and that's why I said I'm starting to get a newfound a faith in California because I listen to your passionate listeners out there, and I'm all the way over here on the right coast, as I call it. But and that's one of the big reasons I listen. So it's a good show. You do a good job, and I appreciate it. And thank you very much. And it's your guests are great, and your callers are too.
Well, thanks for the call, and thanks for listening all the way from.
Let me add a new one to your list, though, because I'm studying my list here hard. My four at the bottom of my list are Bush, Gilmore, Pataki, and Graham. And I agree with Anne Marie. Why Graham hasn't dropped out yet? But I think I'm going to put Pataki on my list for next to drop out.
All right.
Go Mark Meadows for
Okay, I got Mark Meadows.
Green light for Mark Meadows for replacement of the chair, and I'm going to say Pataki's the next one to drop. I don't know how much money he has, even or Graham either. So, but I don't want to. I don't want Rick Santorum to spend a whole lot of money. But I hate to see him go because my kids love him, and I do too. He's a good guy. He really is.
He raises some great issues. He's actually got one of the strongest grassroots networks in the country. Which is why he surprised people and came in second. I forget which, in a whole bunch of states last time out. And I agree with you. I think Rick Santorum is kind of a sleeper. I don't know that I would put money on him being the next to drop out. I just don't see that.
No, I don't either. He hung in there last time, and I like Jendal, and of course all the outsiders are great, and Chris Christie's even started to talk a little bit more what I like to hear, and Kasich, I'm kind of on the wall with him.
John, don't set me off. Don't go to Ohio. Okay, we're okay with North Carolina, but don't go to Ohio.
I'm picking up what you're laying. I'm picking up what you're laying down.
Right.
Put me down for Pataki.
All right, I think Pataki is a clever. Is a very astute because I don't think there's room for two New Yorkers. I'm just saying.
Nah, exactly. And like you were saying earlier, I did hear on the news earlier today. I about half listened at work. I listen and work and in and out of the office and all and on the property. But I did hear Gowdy said he has no interest. But how'd you put it? That's just a nice way to humble himself or whatever. But
it's a politician's way of saying, shucks, not me. I don't know if the aw shucks, not me crowd's going to get in because you've got to sort of promote yourself and you've got to take command. And time is short. We need somebody to effectively oppose Barack Obama and his agenda because he's just steamrolling over these guys.
Yeah, and like Boehner, I mean, that was a no-brainer for Boehner. He was hard. He was holding all the cards, and they just. I'm like the rest of most of the rest of the company. I'm just frustrated with the whole daggone bunch of them. They have some term limits, reasonable term limits, and start representing the people again.
Well, we're certainly going to see who is going to become the next speaker. That may be the next piece of the puzzle, and. Who's going to drop out? 323-746-TALK. John, thanks for calling in.
Take care. Have a good weekend.
Have a great weekend. It's, it's a free-for-all Friday. You're free to call in. If you happen to guess correctly, the next person to drop out of the presidential race, and it can be on either side. You could pick a Democrat or a Republican or an independent because Bernie Sanders is an independent. And whoever gets it, even if there's a number of them, then we're going to hopefully not go broke buying lunches for you. But look, the whole point is that our goal is to inform, educate, and engage. We want you to pay attention. We want you to be in the game. And sometimes a little reward helps the brain. I think Pataki is kind of a clever choice. I am surprised that we haven't heard some of the real guys at the very back of the pack, like Jim Gilmore and some other names like that, because you only have so much money and you can only sustain the pace of a presidential election for so long. It is grueling. I've never run for president, but I certainly have run for governor, and running for governor in the state of California has echoes of, to some extent, what these guys are going through. It's a frenetic pace. It is something that consumes a tremendous amount of money. I mean, imagine you've got to go from state to state to state. You've got to have advanced teams in each state. You've got to pay these people. They're not going to work for free. Yes, you will have some volunteers who help, but you always have to have a paid coordinator of some sort in each area that you're going to. And then you've got to pay for either rent or buy a bus, get your name on it, drive that, pay the fuel, pay the driver, buy the food for this moving army. And if you're not raising millions of dollars per week, we saw it with Scott Walker. I mean, Scott Walker just couldn't last. And that was a guy that has a pretty substantial network in terms of being able to raise funds. So he's definitely someone that, could have got, I thought he could have lasted a lot longer. We're going to go to Stephen in Sacramento. Stephen, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Tim. I just wanted to get in on who I think is going to drop out and a little bit about Boehner's, one down, one to go. Let's get rid of Mitch McConnell next. But you actually said the person I think, because I had to really look hard to find any kind of press coverage, any kind of message from Jim Gilmore, and I just think he's going to be next to go. I don't see any funding. I've never seen him above 1.5% in any poll I've ever looked for. But I just think it's going to be him. And I don't need a gift certificate or anything. I don't want to offend your sponsors, but I don't care for In-N-Out, so I'm good.
Well, they're not sponsors, so no worries there.
Okay.
But certainly, I think you make a good point. I mean, you can't be a complete nobody in the presidential election. There's too many people with name ID. There's too many people with some personality. And Jim Gilmore, who is he? I don't know who he is, and I'm a political junkie.
Nobody does, right? And the people I know that are Republicans, when you ask them who talk about the race, that name never comes up unless somebody's reading down the list of the candidates that are still there, and then they're like, "Who's this guy?"
Yeah, and if they hadn't asked Pataki a question about Trump, nobody would know who Pataki is, except people in New York.
That's true. And I am a Trump supporter. I wasn't at first. At first, I didn't know what to think. I loved the speech he gave in the entrant when he gave his announcement speech. But I just loved it. After a couple of weeks, I just went, whoa. And I would actually like to see Trump Carson run together. I think those two would be unstoppable in the next election if they were on the same ticket. But I don't know if they could work together. I'd like it. I'd love to see that. I think they would just destroy even Joe Biden and Hillary. I mean, I just think they would bury him.
Now, what do you base that on?
That's just my opinion. They're different personalities. They have a few different ideas, and I think Mr. Carson's more conservative, but I'm not trying to say Trump is conservative at all, but I believe Donald Trump and I believe Ben Carson and what they say and what they want to do. One of the things that really got me on the radar with Ben Carson was when he went down to tour the border towns in Arizona, and the sheriff down there is one of the border towns. He was showing them and telling them about these hideouts and caves, and he said, "Can we come in here with drones, shoot missiles, and blow them up?" And the press was just all aghast over that, and I just went, "Whoa!"
Yeah,
he's so mild-mannered and stuff, and so and for him to say that, I was like, "Wow, I like this guy and the way he thinks."
Yeah, that would be an interesting ticket. Hey, Stephen, thanks for the call. We got to take a break. We will be right back after these messages with more of the Tim Donnelly Show. Hey, this is the Radio Free California Network. I am your host, Tim Donnelly, former California State Assemblyman and radio governor of California. Some crazy headlines. People, you hear about the glitterati, the people who worship stars or celebrities, and what do you call it when they go after, when they feel that way about the Pope? Potpourri? Potpourri? I don't know. But there was one congressman who stole the Pope's glass after the White House address to sip the remaining liquid with his wife and then saves some to sprinkle on his grandchildren. That's Representative Bob Brady, devout Catholic and Democrat from Pennsylvania, took the Pope's water glass. I don't know. That's a little weird. I'm just going to say, I'm not sure what he was thinking there, but I guess we'll just have to coin a new word. Potpourri. We've been talking all day about the resignation of John Boehner. It came suddenly. It came without warning, even though there were many who had been working to find a replacement leader. And it's going to be a fascinating watch to see what direction the Republican Party goes. They've got an opportunity right now to reinvent themselves. They've got an opportunity to put in place some sort of a grassroots activist, somebody who's got some connection to the people, because that's where the power's at. People right now want somebody who has the look and feel of an outsider. Talking to my friend Anne-Marie Morel, Louis Gohmert certainly is at the top of that list. You've also got Mark Meadows from North Carolina and a number of others that could be potential replacements. And there is a Californian, Representative Kevin McCarthy from the Bakersfield area. The only problem, I think McCarthy's going to have some real tough sledding, given that he was so close to Speaker Boehner. And if there weren't votes for Boehner, I don't know that there would necessarily be votes for him. But do not ever underestimate Kevin McCarthy. He is a savvy politician and certainly someone who is going to play a role and be a player in this entire thing. And I think he's been positioning himself from the very beginning. He's got a very powerful base of donors in the Kern County Bakersfield area, where you've got all that oil, you've got cattle ranches, you've got agriculture, you've got a tremendous, strong conservative stronghold. So he'll be in the race. You've got Daniel Webster from Florida. I don't know that much about Daniel Webster. We'll have to research him and check him out and bring you a little more info on him. But let's see. Maybe this whole thing will be over by the end of the weekend. I don't know. You certainly don't want to rush into putting the wrong person in there, but at the same time, you can't take forever. You can't have a rudderless ship. You've got to have a leader at the helm. You've got to have somebody that gets it. And right now, the American people want to be inspired. They want to have leaders that will stand up for the little guy. Stand up for me. Stand up for you. Stand up for those of us who are working hard, playing by the rules, and who are sick and tired of being disappointed by politicians that we send to Washington, D.C., by politicians we send to Sacramento, who are fed up with this game that the GOP establishment in particular plays, where they put up somebody who says all these tough-talking conservative things, like, hey, let's repeal Obamacare, let's undo and defund the amnesty, the executive amnesty that Obama put in place. And then they get there and it's like they got amnesia. Oh, well, we can't really do that because then we would shut down the government and they would call us names. That's what we've had to settle for. Oh, well, with John Boehner, at least he'll cry on cue. And I'd like to see a Newt Gingrich type leader. Somebody who is a backbencher, bomb thrower, radical, who gets out there and shakes things up. Now, he's got to obviously have some polish, and he's got to be smart and savvy and understand the game, even if he doesn't play it their way. So there's that. And that's why you're going to see a number of candidates. But if the conservative cabal, if the conservative underground in Washington, D.C. is smart, and I think they are, They should limit the number of candidates. They should rally around and talk to those before they give their support, which I'm sure is happening right now. There are people going around trying to get that magic number, and then they should get behind somebody and back them up. And then they should put in place a team of, because it isn't just the speaker. The speaker has a whole massive staff, and how he picks that staff is very important. If he fills it with PR and political science people, then you wind up with all fluff and no substance. You wind up with the chaff but no grain. And so you need to have smart and savvy policy wonks and people who know how to get things done and who understand strategy and tactics. And you also have to have lieutenants and captains and on down the line who will serve you by serving the people and serving the cause. And so you don't want to have weak links. You want to have a strong team that's going to put out a strong message that's going to follow through, that knows how to get things done. And I'm betting that there may only be a handful in Washington, D.C. that can do that. And so those people are going to rise up, and we're going to have a new speaker. And that is significant given that the Speaker of the House, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, is third in line for the presidency. Is that correct, Sean? Are you familiar with that?
Yes, that is correct.
I hate to put you on the spot, but I figure you know a lot. You're like an encyclopedia. Do you have any thoughts on who you think might step up or might win it? Let me say it that way.
I'm thinking of Chairman Price out of Georgia.
Yeah, his name was mentioned before.
Because he's got that Tea Party, I'm not going to take any, BS kind of thing. And I think that's what we need. We need somebody that's going to shut down this lame duck president's last, year and, few months.
I couldn't agree with you more on that. Certainly. I
mean, right now, we're, the Republican Party is just rubber stamping everything that he wants done.
Yeah, I think John Boehner's going to try to finish off the rest of the Obama agenda before he gets out of the building. Hey, we are going to take a quick break. This is the Radio Free California Network. 323-746-TALK if you want to get in our last segment here before we take off for the weekend. Defending the fundamental freedom of parents to make informed decisions for their own children is a basic human right that should never be infringed. But it was. California's SB 277 denies children access to education and takes away a parent's right to choose. You don't have to be a parent to help, but only you can make a difference. Let's exercise the people's veto and overturn SB 277. To volunteer or donate, go to SB277referendum.com. That's SB277referendum.com. Do it now. Paid for by SB 277 Referendum Committee, FPPC ID number 1378398. Hey, this is the Radio Free California Network. I am your host, Tim Donnelly, former California State Assemblyman and Radio Governor of California. And as we've already informed you, there was one lake here in California that has completely vanished. The water just drained like a bathtub up near Susanville. And, that's a scary reality with this drought, except that we have been getting some rain on and off here in the past few weeks, and El Nino conditions are predicted going forward. So I'm really wondering what happened there. You don't have lakes just get drained like a bathtub. It's not like they have a plug in the bottom and you can just let them out. Of course, man-made ones do, but maybe somebody pushed the wrong button. I don't know, but thousands of fish are now dead, and I can't help but think it's sort of a metaphor for California under Jerry Brown. And water has become a hot commodity. You've got investors mining for water, and they're putting a lot of money anywhere and everywhere they can put a straw down into the ground where they can cut a deal with somebody who has water rights. Water is the new platinum, and it is in short supply. So, of course, it's going to cost more, and that's what happens with free markets. But, if Jerry Brown and the Democrats had just built the dams instead of building the damn train, and if they had really paid attention to the infrastructure instead of and keeping the water in rather than letting half of it go out under the Golden Gate Bridge in the name of the environment, which still to me to this day makes zero sense, why you would just allow fresh water to go out to sea. Yes, I understand they want to try to inject some fresh water in water that has become too salty, but sometimes you can't save everything. And you've got to prioritize. And the priority has to be human beings, human life, and human endeavor. And you try to function without water for a day. I mean, you can live without John Boehner. I don't know if John Boehner can live without water because he has to cry every day. But you can live without the government. You can live without Jerry Brown. You don't need him to limit your showers and all this, government control in every aspect of your life. If the government just shut down completely, most people would never notice, because the only part of the government that we really truly need, we need people who drive buses to get people to work. We need police officers to be on the streets to some extent to maintain order. Fire, got to have them. Now, needless to say, back before we had professional firemen, we actually had volunteers, and that worked out real well for a long, long time. But the question is, how long can you go without water? And it's literally a matter of maybe 3 days. But how long could a state go without water when you need it for agriculture? When you're the largest agricultural state, literally in the world. When you're a massive manufacturing base, even though a lot of that has gone overseas now to China and points north, south, east, and west, anywhere but California, because of our onerous regulations. But water is a big part of a lot of manufacturing. And then when you are a manufacturer, you have to maintain that water. You have to keep it in a state that it is usable, and you have to reuse it because it's so valuable. And if you've used it let's just, for an example, as a cooling agent, what happens is it gets hard, and then it blocks up the passages within the sort of radiator that you're using to cool the water, and so then you have to treat it. Well, you can't let treated water out down the drain. I mean, that would be a hazardous waste and illegal dumping. And so everywhere you look, it's like the old saying, water everywhere, not a drop to drink. But maybe what we should do is just pray that this is the year of the El Nino. It would be nice if they had already finished the dams where they could collect the water. And it would be nice if we could, I think this is even more important than the infrastructure, is actually having a government and a governor who would acknowledge the fact that human beings have a right over the environment, and that must be prioritized, that we have to sit down and make some decisions based on some sense of order. Because right now, there is none. Right now, you have complete chaos when it comes to water. You've got lakes drying up. You've got fish being afforded massive amounts, outflows, rivers running at full flow out to the ocean. Meanwhile, farmers aren't getting water, and you wonder why so many people are leaving California, and especially taxpayers. So whoever becomes the next Speaker of the House in Washington, D.C., will actually have a big effect on whether or not we get water and whether or not we get someone who will work with us to overtake this abusive government that puts fish above people and endangered species above the true endangered species in this country, which is freedom. You know, you don't have private property if the government has absolute control over it and can kick you off it and take command of it. And I believe the founders made a mistake by putting pursuit of happiness instead of private property. Maybe they could have put both. It wouldn't have been as eloquent or as elegant a turn of phrase, but it certainly would have given us an easier time defending this from the endless onslaughts by this out-of-control government who has an insatiable appetite for destruction. Hey, we are here every weekday, 3 to 6 p.m., TimDonnellyShow.com, the Radio Free California Network. God bless you and Godspeed. Tim Donnelly Show, out.